Hey guys, welcome to another video here with me, Coach Matt. Today we're going to be discussing a little bit about the London opening. It's quite a powerful system in 1d4, that's the Queen's Pawn opening, and a bit of a favorite of our world champion, Magnus Carlsen. So we'll just touch on the basics today, but I thought I want to have a bit of a chat with you guys about that. All right, let's get into it. So as we said, we're talking 1d4. That's the Queen's Pawn opening. We have had a bit of discussions about it in previous videos where we addressed not only Queen's Pawn opening, but an opening from black side that you can play against this. Remember, what I want you guys to realize when we talk about these different openings is that the Queen's Pawn opening d4 is completely separate, and they almost have nothing to do with one another from the e4 opening. So a lot of the time you see e4, e5, and then we play along these positions, okay, something that a lot of you guys are very familiar with. And in d4, d5, you might say, well, I go knight f3 anyway, and then you're like, isn't it basically the same thing? But no, it's not really the same thing at all. The structure, the pawn structure is entirely different. And the pieces are then placed on different squares as well. And I think whenever you're learning openings and mastering openings and any openings alike, you want to just understand where to place the pieces. I almost feel like that's a cheat code when it comes to mastering openings, because if you know what squares you put your pieces on, it almost does all the hard work for you. I mean, if you know, like, the knight's going to f3, the bishop's going to f4, the light squared bishop's going to d3, then this knight's going to d2, then it's kind of like you know what you need to do. And then, of course, if they do something completely out of the ordinary, then you can deal with that. But at least you already understand where you wish to place your pieces. And that way, you'll generally get out of the opening in a strong position. All right, so technically, London, we should play bishop f4 on move 2. That sort of signifies the London. And then, of course, black can play many, many different options. I'll keep it simple here in this video with regards to black's responses. But I think that one of the things I've always loved about the London is that you can basically play the same structure against almost any response that your opponent plays, which is very useful, because that way you don't have to learn too much opening theory, and you don't have to be worried about, am I playing this move in that variation, or he's played this variation, do I need to concentrate on something different? All right, so let's just focus on developing our pieces, following our basic opening rules. Pawns in the center, develop the pieces, castle the king. So bishop f4, knight f6, knight f3. So as we said, I was kind of gave it away earlier when we said where we're going to put the pieces. So this light squared bishop's going to go to d3, and this knight's going to go to d2. Of course, in order to get the bishop to d3, we'll need to play e3. And then we'll just short castle, and that pretty much completes our development. Let's go e6 is black, opening up the bishop. These are all good moves for both sides that I'm making. e3, we continue with the plan. Bishop e7, pretty standard, developing the piece, preparing to castle. Bishop d3, short castles, short castles. Let's go c5. Often this is the way black tries to counter, because they want to try and get a little bit of activity in the center. White plays c3. There's this little triangle here, which I often use just sort of as a symbol to help you guys remember the structure of the pawns. So that way you'll remember, oh yeah, okay, I need to put my pawns in the triangle. That will just help you to remember that. So of course, if pawn takes, you can probably just go pawn takes. I think c takes is fine. Even e takes would have been good enough there. Let's say instead black just continues with knight c6, knight bd2. Normal developing moves. Queen b6 is often quite a nice counter here. They're looking to attack this b2 pawn. Of course, in chess, we want to be greedy. We don't want to be giving away any free pawns. No, thank you. Queen c2 is a good one. Any move that I can make that will improve my position, but at the same time solve my problem. That's what I'm looking for. Rook b1 is a little bit, I mean, we can call it a last resort. I can always play that move to defend the pawn. Maybe something like queen c2, a little bit more proactive, a little bit more exciting, because I get this, and then I'm also now putting a bit of pressure on my opponent's king, which of course is very important. Let's go cd. That's pawn takes pawn. I'm going to go ed in this position. Let's say black completes his development with bishop d7. So here's pretty much development completed. The king castled. Nice sort of situation. Maybe rook e1. This is a semi-open file. The rook controlling all of these squares, putting a little bit of pressure here. Of course, this pawn very heavily defended, so it's not like we're going to take this pawn. But it's just about putting the rook on a square where he's active, where he's controlling a lot of squares, where he's being of use. Then another key move, knight e5 can be used here. All right, so this is a nice position and probably playable for both sides, but I think white has a slight edge. And these are the types of positions you can expect to get yourself into playing the London. And obviously black hasn't played really any bad moves here. Let's go back to the start. I'm going to now set up a slightly different structure. Let's say black plays something entirely, well, not entirely, but let's say ever so slightly different. So let's say knight f6 this time. We'll go knight f3 again. I'll go bishop g4. We'll go e3, e6, bishop d3. Again, we're putting our pieces on basically the same squares. We're just trying to master this setup or this system. Bishop b4 check, pretty sketchy move from black. No good to deliver this check if your opponent can simply block. We wanted to play this move anyway. Thank you. So bishop a5, obviously retreating. He's not going to drop the bishop. Knight bd2, continuing with development. Black castles, white castles. Knight c6, a decent move here. I wonder if we should go, let's go h3 to attack this bishop. It's always a good inclusion, place the bishop back. Of course, if he takes, we'd be very happy to just simply take back. Just remember, guys, when they take this, excuse me, you don't want to take with a pawn, because that would open up the king, and the king would be more vulnerable, which is definitely not what we want. So bishop back. Queen e2. Once you've developed and castled, you are going to need to move the queen to connect the rooks. And then there's a nice little idea here that I wanted to show you guys. So let's say like rook e8. That seems like a decent move for black. e4, breaking the center. Once we've completed our development, we open up the center to create a bit of attack. Knight takes e4 for white. Black then goes knight e4, queen e4. And this sets up this little battery. The queen and bishop firing on the same diagonal, which can sometimes get you a quick victory if your opponents are not paying attention to the threat, queen h7. All right, guys, so that was a nice little opening crash course on the London opening. A nice option for you guys if you're looking to play something a little bit different, or maybe just experiment with something new. Learn new structures, learn new positions, broaden your horizons, as it were. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, goodbye.